Mae Carter didn't have many friends. She wasn't the girl people noticed in the hallway. She wasn't popular, or loud, or particularly bold. But she was watching, always watching, and at night, when the world got quiet, she would write, on old receipts, on school notebooks, on the backs of flyers no one wanted. She didn't write for anyone. She wrote to breathe. If I don't let the words out, she once wrote in her journal, they'll swallow me whole. Her father wasn't around. Her mother worked 2 jobs. She ate dinner alone most nights, by candlelight, because the electricity was always out by the 14th of every month. But Mae never pitted herself. She never screamed at the world for being unfair. Instead, she turned every ache into a sentence, every silence into a paragraph, every disappointment into poetry. At school, the other kids would throw jokes across the classroom. But Mae, she'd be sketching character arcs into her notebook margins. Her favorite teacher once found a poem she'd written and whispered, "Mae, this is beautiful. You should share this." She smiled, but she didn't, not yet, because when life feels like survival, dreams sound like luxury. But still, she wrote, and in those scribbled lines no one saw, Mae was already building her way out. Mae never shared her writing, not with classmates, not with neighbors, not even with her mother. Her words were hers, private, sacred. But one night, after staring at a half-eaten bowl of rice, and hearing her mom sigh from another room, Mae decided to do something she'd never done before. She picked one of her poems, the one she wrote after overhearing a girl say, "She always looks like she's carrying something heavy." She posted it anonymously, on a small poetry forum, and titled it, "I Am." She closed the laptop, didn't check again, didn't expect anything. But the next morning, she opened her notifications. 412 comments, 728 shares, pinned by admin. Her hands shook. People weren't just reading it, they were feeling it. This saved me tonight. I don't know who wrote this, but I hope you're okay. This is exactly what I needed to hear. Mae read every comment, every like, every message, and for the first time in her life, she felt something she didn't know she needed, to be heard, not loud, not famous, not clapping on stage, heard, just understood. She looked at her reflection, messy bun, hoodie, tired eyes, and whispered, "Maybe I'm not invisible." That night, she posted again, not to impress, not to perform, but because, somewhere out there, someone was waiting to breathe. Every day, Mae still walked the same halls, still wore the same 2 jackets, still sat in the back row of class, but something had changed. Her words, those same late-night sentences she once scribbled alone, were now showing up in places she'd never been. A teacher printed one out and pinned it to the classroom wall. An art student painted her words across a canvas and posted it online, inspired by this anonymous poet who speaks like she's been inside my head. Mae rode the bus home one afternoon, and the girl in front of her was reading her poem on Instagram. She didn't say a word, didn't tap her shoulder, she just smiled, because no one knew her face. But they felt her. Every poem she posted now got hundreds, sometimes thousands, of shares. She created a pen name, Paper Ember. It didn't have her photo. No bio, just words, and people followed, not because they were curious, but because they were changed. She never bragged, never posted screenshots, never told a soul, but every night, after homework and dishes, she would sit by the window, log into her account, and whisper, "More people found me today." Not her clothes, not her body, not her smile, her voice. Mae had never been on a plane, she'd never seen the ocean, never crossed her own state line, but somehow, her words had. One morning, she got an email with the subject line, "Your words belong in this world." It was from a woman in France, curating a global poetry collection on healing and identity. "We've selected 10 anonymous poets. You're one of them. Your poem, Stitches in the Sky, stopped us cold." Mae read the message 3 times. Her heart thumped against her ribs. She didn't feel qualified, didn't feel ready, but she said yes. Her piece was translated into 5 languages, used in classrooms in Argentina, read aloud at a healing circle in Tokyo, featured on a spoken word podcast in Cape Town. She didn't travel, didn't appear on video, but her words did. They crossed oceans, broke borders, stood in rooms she couldn't afford to enter. Her school guidance counselor walked up to her one day with a printed copy of the feature. "Have you seen this?" she asked. "This anonymous poet, they're going to change the world." Mae smiled, nodded, but said nothing, because she knew, you don't always need to be seen to be felt. Her voice was no longer just her own. It was echoing through strangers' lives, healing things she'd never even known. And that was power. For months, Mae had been writing under the name Paper Ember. No face. No voice. No name, but her words kept spreading, and the world was getting curious. Who is this girl? Where is she from? Why isn't she speaking up? She ignored the comments, closed her DMs, turned off notifications, because it wasn't about her, it was about the message, but curiosity kept knocking. One Friday, she opened her inbox to find a new request. We're hosting a youth poetry event. We'd love to feature Paper Ember, in person. It was her first official invitation, from a local radio station. The host had been reading her poems every Friday night. We just want you to read. We can blur your face, or you can wear a mask, but people want to hear your voice. Mae stared at the screen, her heart raced. She wanted to say yes, but the fear whispered, what if they laugh? What if they say you're not what they expected? What if they stop listening once they see you? She locked her phone, walked down the school hallway, the same one where no one ever noticed her. But this time, as she passed a classroom, she heard a teacher reading her poem aloud. She writes like she's seen all the storms and still chooses the sky. Mae froze. Maybe it was time. Maybe her face didn't need to be perfect. Maybe her voice didn't need to sound like anyone else's. Maybe it wasn't about being ready. Maybe it was just about being real. Mae didn't tell anyone where she was going that Saturday. She just packed her worn notebook, tied her hair back, and took the early bus across town. It was quiet. When she stepped into the radio station lobby, she almost turned around, but then she heard it, her own poem, playing through the hallway speakers. They say I'm made of paper, but I know how to burn. Paper Ember, the receptionist looked up and smiled. You're her, aren't you? Mae nodded. Barely. Inside the studio, the lights were soft, the microphone looked bigger than she'd imagined, her hands were cold, but when the host said, we're live in 3, 2, 1. Mae took a breath, and read, not perfectly. Her voice cracked once, she stumbled on a word, but no one cared, because the world was quiet, listening. She finished her poem with a whisper, you don't need to shout, to change the air in the room. The host didn't speak right away, even he was still catching his breath. Then the phone lines lit up. Hundreds of messages poured in. I cried. I'm naming my daughter after her. This saved me tonight. As Mae left the station, she looked up at the sky and whispered, we're not hiding anymore. The bus ride home felt different, like something in the air had shifted. She wasn't just a writer now, she was a voice, and the world had finally heard her breathe. Mae never meant to hide her words from her mother, but it was easier that way. Her mom already worked too hard, 2 shifts. 3 buses. She didn't want to add worry to the weight she carried. But one Wednesday night, as her mother folded laundry in the living room, she heard a voice on the radio, soft. Nervous. Honest. Mae's voice. The host introduced the piece. Tonight's reading is from the rising star, Paper Ember, a name many of you now know. But her real name? Mae Carter. Her mother dropped a shirt, frozen. She listened, to the woman who raised me with her tired hands and silent tears. I saw you, even when you thought I didn't. Paper Ember, tears filled her eyes. She remembered all the nights Mae stayed up late scribbling, all the questions she never asked, all the silence between them, and she realized, it wasn't silence, it was survival, and now. It had become art. When Mae got home that night, she found her mother sitting in the kitchen, no anger, no scolding. Just her, holding the notebook Mae had hidden behind a cereal box. You wrote all this? She whispered. Mae nodded. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't know if I was good enough. Her mother reached across the table. Mae, you were always enough, the world's just catching up. And just like that, the girl who had always written in secret was seen, not by strangers, not by fans, but by the one person she always wanted to reach. Mae was brushing her hair when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost ignored it. Almost. But something in her chest said, answer it. Hello? Hi, is this Mae Carter? Also known as Paper Ember? Her heart paused. Yes. Who's this? I'm with Sunbridge Publishing. We've been following your poetry. Your voice is raw. Brave. Honest, we'd like to offer you a publishing deal, not just for your poems, but for your story. Mae blinked, her brush slipped from her hand. She didn't even sit down. She just stood there, frozen, as the woman on the other end continued. We believe in what you're doing. We'll handle the editing, the tour, the press. We just need you, as you are. Mae felt her knees weaken. She'd never flown, never done an interview, never even dreamed of being published. But now, a company that had launched bestsellers was calling her, the girl with crumpled notebooks and secondhand shoes, the girl who once thought she'd disappear into silence. That night, she went to the rooftop of her building. She didn't scream, didn't dance. She just looked up at the sky, and let the wind hit her face. God. She whispered, I didn't know it could be me. But it was her, and it was happening. The launch was in 2 weeks. Her face was finally going to be on the cover, not hidden, not blurred, not behind a username. Mae Carter, Paper Ember, one and the same. She tried on 4 outfits before settling on a soft gray blazer and her mother's gold earrings. You look like yourself, her mother said, tucking a curl behind Mae's ear. The room was packed. Bloggers. Podcasters. Young girls clutching copies of her book. A banner behind the podium read, Meet the voice that moved millions. Mae stood backstage, hands trembling. The host smiled and whispered, Ready? She nodded, sort of, as she stepped into the lights. Phones lifted, applause echoed, but it all blurred, until she reached the mic, and took a breath. Hi, I'm Mae Carter. Some of you know me as Paper Ember. For years. I wrote so I could feel seen, but now, I write so you can. The room got quiet, a stillness that felt sacred. I never thought I'd be here. But sometimes, the things that break you, become the fire that builds you. People cried, people stood, and the live stream chat flooded with messages from around the world. She's real. She's like us. She's everything I needed. Mae left the stage in tears, but this time, they weren't from pain, they were from arrival. 3 years later, Mae stood in front of a circle of young girls, some of them shy, some angry, some still learning how to speak. She handed each of them a notebook, blank. Clean, just like the one she once wrote in when no one was listening. This, she said, is where your voice begins. Mae no longer needed crowds, no longer needed applause. Now, she just needed impact. She taught girls who had been silenced, held space for women who thought their stories were too ugly to tell, spoke in schools, hosted healing sessions. One girl walked up to her after a session, holding a copy of Mae's book like a treasure. I wanted to hurt myself, she whispered, then I read your poem. And I didn't. Mae didn't speak, she just hugged her tight, because that was everything. She remembered how her own pain once felt like a prison, but now, it had become a pathway. At her last book signing, a journalist asked, What does Paper Ember mean to you now? She smiled. It was the name I hid behind when I didn't believe in myself, but now, it's the name people whisper when they feel found. She looked around the bookstore, filled with light and laughter and healing, and she knew, it had never just been about poetry, it had been about becoming.